Hey, welcome back to the Farewell North Devlog. In this video, we're going to go over how I built the main menu for my game with no design background, but still getting a compelling result. So let's get started. So for me, any feature development starts with the inspiration phase. And a great tip that I picked up from the 1000 Ant YouTube channel was to use Pinterest for this. So what I've done is I've created a UI design board. It's really a main menu board. And whenever I have a couple of minutes, knowing that I'm going to be developing this feature at some point in the future, I'd kind of just go on here, I'd look up main menus and kind of just like idly add ones that I liked to this board. And now that I've done that, I've got 30 or so menus on this board that I can look at, and I can look at them from a high level and say, what do they have in common? What is it that catches my eye about them? Why is it that these ones in particular stood out to me? And I can get a feel for what it is that I want to build. And so that's the inspiration side of it. But another thing that's kind of handy is that you'll also notice features or functionality that you hadn't considered before. So for me, like, there's an exit game button on almost all of these menus, and that's not something I would have thought about because I'm the kind of person who I just turn off my console or my computer and don't really think about that. So when I created my task list, that wasn't something that was on it. So I can go here and I can say, okay, well, I probably need an exit button because some people obviously need that, and I can add that to my list. And so like I said, I don't have any kind of design background, so this is a really helpful exercise for me. So one thing that I noticed is that a lot of these use light fonts, and they have very striking kind of environmental art. And so that's something I'm going to want to incorporate in mine as well. So it doesn't take much time, but you can get a really strong sense of what it is that you want to build from this process. So just last week I published the teaser trailer on my YouTube channel, and I got a great reception from that, and out of it I got this really nice shot with the rune and the two trees and just a little bit of color and the birds. And like I said, I shared this a lot on social media, got a great response from it, a lot of great feedback. So I went ahead and updated the Steam page. I'll leave a link in the description. Go check it out if you haven't already, and wishlist the game. That would help me out a ton. But I got a lot of great reception from this shot in particular, and I've been leaning heavily on it, so I think it'll be a great backdrop for the main menu. Alright, so I've got some inspiration. I've got a rough idea of what kind of key art I want. I've got a task list, so it's time to get caffeinated and get to work. So the first thing to do was to set up a scene. I decided to treat this like any other level, so I'd have an actual terrain, I would have, you know, all the level components that I have for a normal level, and rather than like an image or anything static, I wanted to be more interactive, and I wanted to lean on the effects that I've already built and have them animated and all that kind of stuff exactly as they are in game. So the easiest way to do it was just to treat it as if it's a game scene. So this took maybe half an hour to set up, and then from here it's just a matter of laying out the level elements, kind of setting up the camera to get that nice shot, and everything else is going to work as it does in the game. So once I had the kind of rough shot laid out, it was time to start adding UI elements. And this is the part where I really struggle because, like I said, I just don't have a design background. I don't know off the top of my head what's going to look good and what's not. It's just a lot of experimentation and trial and error. One thing I noticed from a lot of the reference photos, or almost all the reference photos, is that they all had light text, like either pure white or very light text. And they used kind of darker backgrounds in order to accomplish this. That's not really going to work super well for the shot I had in mind, and the reason is because the background, like the skybox, is so bright. So in the game, the uncolored world, the skybox is like a pure glowing white. And so to have that as the backdrop was going to be kind of difficult. I could have had the just uncolored world and no skybox, but it just wasn't going to fit with the shot I had in mind. So what I decided to do was just lean into that, go with dark text, no UI background. And so what I did is I lowered the terrain to make sure I had enough of the sky to actually lay out all the UI elements on top of that, and then test it with different resolutions and everything, and make sure that no matter what resolution you're using, you're not going to have text going over the terrain. And so I just kind of adjusted the shot a little bit, increased the amount of skybox that was shown, and once I got kind of comfortable with the way that was going to look, I added in all the grass and like the little elements like the birds. And yeah, essentially the shot is done. The layout is kind of roughly complete. I have a good idea of what it's going to look like. And so from here, I could actually move on to a little bit more of the implementation. So I wanted to add a couple of effects to really make the menu pop. The first was that I wanted a slight animation on the cursor next to the button that you currently have selected, so you can actually see where you are in the menu. I figured less is more here because I don't have the design background. The more I add, the more likely I am to screw it up. So I just kept it really simple. I put a little image next to each of the buttons and I fade them in and out as you move through so you can actually see what you have selected. And the only other animation that I added was on the camera itself. So I didn't want it to be completely still shot, right? So I set up a scene. I have like basically a level. I can have a bit more of interaction. So the camera actually very slightly, very gently animates forward and backwards and up and down. So there's a little bit of motion on the scene, just a tiny bit to kind of, make it feel, kind of play with the wind and all that kind of stuff. Next up was to grab some sound effects. So for this, I headed over to kenny.nl. If you're not familiar with Kenny, he puts together all kinds of CC0 assets for indie game developers, so 3D models, 2D sprites, audio, all kinds of stuff. I happen to know that he had a UI audio asset pack, and so I figured that'd be a good starting point to make some adjustments and get like a perfect sound effect for my menu. So check this out. So as you can see, there's just a ton of different sound effects in this pack to pick from, and it's awesome to have that choice, right? So what I did is I went through, I listened to a whole bunch of them, and I found one that was along the lines of what I was looking for. It wasn't exact, but that's okay. So I brought it into Audacity. So have a listen to this. So it's just a little bit too mechanical for me, so I trimmed it up, modified the pitch a little bit, added a low pass filter to it, and eventually got to something that kind of fit a little bit better. And so I brought that back into Unity, added a quick button audio class, and implemented some logic to play the sound effect as you're going through the menu. And so with the audio and the 2 different animations in place, here's a look at how it was looking at the end of the first day. So obviously you can hear the sound effect and you can see the little cursor to the left of the buttons, but you can also see the camera subtly coming in and out, just giving a little bit of motion to the menu as well. So that was the end of the first day working on this, and I was feeling pretty good about it, so I went and found a subreddit called Design Critiques, and I posted it, and I was honestly expecting to get torn apart, but I wanted to get that feedback from actual designers. But the feedback was actually all really positive. I got a couple suggestions for improvements, but people seemed to really like it. So a couple of the common things were to hide the continue button if it's not actually available, thicken up the font a little bit, keep it thin, but just add a little bit of depth to it so that it's not going to blend into the background, and then increase the spacing between the actual characters. And so who am I to argue with, the opinions of 30 actual designers? So I went in and made those changes, thickened up the font, increased the spacing between them. I also reduced the size of the cursor, and got rid of the continue button until it was actually available. So you can see here, this would be the first time you boot up, you don't have a game save, so you just have a new game button, and then once you create a game and you come back, then you would have the continue button there as well. And so the final thing to implement in order for that all to work was to add a kind of confirmation modal. And so I wanted to create this in a way that it was going to be reusable so I could use it in the actual game. So I created a prefab with a generic title, yes, no buttons, and then you can set the text through code. So I can do, like confirmation.display and then give it a string to display and then get a callback when either the yes or no button's clicked. And so this is going to show if you click the new game button and you do have an existing game save, it's just going to say, your progress is going to be overwritten. So there's a little bit of logic here to kind of switch context between the 2 menus. So, if the cursor is currently on the modal or it's on the main game. So I figured it was worth spending some time on this so I'd have it being reusable. I can use it, in the in-game menu in all different places. So I wanted to invest that little bit of time in it. And I think it turned out okay. I kept the design really, really simple. Just, black box with white text. Again, less is more when you're not actually a designer. Just keep things really, really simple. And that's my kind of motto. And so yeah, guys, so here's the final result. So here's the look at the first time you boot up and you don't have a game save, so there's no continue button. If you click new game, it's just going to start the game. And then here's the follow-up. Next time you come back, you have the continue button, and if you click new game, you get the modal. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. I'm actually really proud of this. I think this is probably the best thing I've ever designed. And honestly, I think I owe a lot of it to that whole Pinterest technique. I think that really helped me out, and it gave me a lot of inspiration for how I was going to build this really in advance and gave me a way to think about this prior to actually jumping in. So I had maybe a subconscious idea of how this is going to work. So anyways, I want to know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. Let me know how you think the menu turned out. Let me know if you think there's room for improvement, how I can make this, even better. And then, of course, I'll leave the link down below for the Steam page. Go check out the new key art. Go check out the trailer. And wishlist the game. That would help me out so much. It just lets Steam know that there's an audience out there that's anticipating the game, and it would mean so much to me. In any case, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.